Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Basin. I am honored to be joined by second-time guest of the show, Cliff Richards. Welcome back, Cliff.
Hey, Luke. Thanks for having me back on, buddy.
It's great having you back on the show. You're repping the Stars and Stripes behind you, and you used to be in active duty Marine, and you're still a Marine, obviously. So thank you very much for bringing the patriotism to the show. It's much appreciated. Thank you for your service. All right, we got very exciting news. You're fighting again for the second time in MMA for 247 Fighting Championships, which will be coming up. Their first ever Cincinnati, Ohio card, September 9th. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through some questions to cover the last almost 2 years. You had your debut MMA fight in October of 2021, won by, I believe it was second round rear naked choke. Very impressive. I got to call your fight. So let's jump in from there. In the last 2 years, what did you learn and take away from your first MMA fight? And then how have you been kind of working on developing since then in the last 2 years?
So one of the first things that became apparent to me was that I was worried about some of the wrong things. As a wrestler, to make weight, I might have to do that 3 times in 1 week. And with an MMA fight, you might have months. So I was like, well, wow, why wouldn't I go down as low as 135? And that's what I was shooting for, even though, ended up being a catch weight of 40. And I realized that in the end, I was sacrificing some of my camp for the cut. And when that's happening, you're cutting too much. I ended up finishing DeMar in the second round. If it went the distance, you might not have seen the same me in there. And I didn't want that to happen. And, I've had a couple camps since then, a couple fights got canceled, and, did some jiu-jitsu here and there. And I went up a little heavier each time. And still, I realized that I don't want to go any lower than 150. And I was going to fight 155 for this, but then they said, hey, it's same day weigh-in. So I said, all right, let me go up to 165. And then Timbo countered with 163. I don't know what that 2 pounds did from. I think it might have been a mind game or something, but it's sure, kid, let's do 63. So yeah, I'm putting more time into my craft, making sure that I'm ready for the fight, not ready for a scale.
Sure. Yeah, that's obviously, I think you're very wise. As a former wrestler, it makes sense in MMA. You're only making those big cuts 3-4 times a year. But we know, and of course now rest in peace, but Anthony Rumble Johnson, a legend that ended up fighting for the belt twice at 205 and having huge knockout wins at heavyweight, he would spend the last month and a half of camp, sometimes close to 2 months, on a cut. And similar to what you were saying, if your cut starts taking away from training, then your cut's too big. And I know some people are going to disagree on that, but a lot of times when fighters go up in weight, like Anthony Rumble Johnson did, they realize, oh my goodness, I can actually, train better, train harder, fight better than when the fight was really the battle with the scale and not the battle in the cage. So I think that's a very, it's a great mindset to have with only one MMA fight. You kind of learned a lot. Where are you currently training? Last time you were on the show, you had just moved to Tijuana, Mexico, and now you're back in SoCal, Southern California, across the border into the greatest country in the world. And so kind of where are you living? Where are you training? What is your gym dynamic like? Take us through that.
So I'm no longer a Mexican. I know. I moved back across the border. I'm training out of Victory MMA in San Diego.
Okay.
Great gym, powerhouse of a gym. Solid programs all around. And one of my favorite things is the schedule. I mean, they got classes going from early in the morning to late at night. So even if something came up, if you wanted to train that day, you could. There's always a class you can make. And the coaches there, very helpful. Always want to put some extra time in with me before practice, after practice. So I'm happy to be a part of that gym.
That's great. I'm glad you found a great gym home there with a lot of good flexible training that goes a long way. I know you used to train out a gym in the Pittsburgh area. Obviously, you can't do that. Why say yes? This is exciting. It's a good thing. But why say yes to Cincinnati, Ohio? That's a bit of a drive up. I'm thinking for you, what brings you back? I know 247's happy to have you back. The legendary Jim Mooney, head matchmaker, and Hunter Hamastek, I'm sure, and Ryan Middleton are happy to have you back. I'm going to be happy to be cage side watching you and Timbo Slice throw down. It's a great matchup, but why say yes to this and come back to Cincinnati?
So a lot of things fell into place for this one that just made it perfect for me. I obviously am on good terms with the promotion. I think Ian's run the show very well and very professional. And I think you're doing it in ways that no one else is doing in the Northeast. So I'm happy to be a part of your product. But to move into Ohio, where we don't have to deal with the garbage PA rules, man, finally I get to really just open up and do what I've been wanting to do. As a wrestler, you got to know I want to ground and pound, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and the Ohio rules, I think, are a good combination. I'll always say a negative comment about the Virginia rules because the Virginia rules are that there are no amateur restrictions. It's pro rules, knees to the face, elbows, head kicks, elbows on the ground. And while you might like that, I think that's a bit much for an 0-0, brand new fighter. I think that can really get people hurt. But I like how Ohio kind of has it balanced, right? You're allowed ground and pound, but it's not full knee to the face and things like that. There's some restrictions, I believe. So I'm glad that there's some level of balance to it. So you're obviously looking forward to ground and pound. Are these 3 3s or 3 2s? I think they're 3, minute 3 3s.
Yeah.
So that goes a long way because your weight cut last time and stuff. You were saying it's a good thing you got it finished in the second round because another round might have been difficult. How do you feel now at 163? Thanks to Timbo Slice picking that number, I guess, whatever. At 163, how confident are you that you can fight 9 minutes potentially? That's 80% longer, 60%. My math's not great. It's a lot longer potentially than the 4-minute fight you had last time.
Hey, at the end of the day, this is a fight, and 9 minutes of fighting is a long 9 minutes. But I'm confident with the training I got, the conditioning, the way that my coaches are pushing me, that I'm going to get through just fine. And they've actually convinced me that this can be better. With me maybe trying to finish this on the ground or things not going my way for the first minute or so. If you only have a minute left,
yeah,
that can be a disadvantage. So to get full 3 minutes in, I'm trying to look at that as a plus.
Yeah, it is a plus. I can see, and that's where great training from Victory MMA comes in, is that, yeah, I always say in 2-minute rounds, 30 seconds per round, that's a quarter of the round. So whether it's 30 seconds up against the cage, 30 seconds goes by like that, that's a quarter of the round. 2 of those is a half of the round. And to your point, sometimes it takes time to work on the ground, or it takes time to scramble. It takes time to get into a position. And if you secure a takedown and are in a dominant position and have 10 seconds left in the round, that doesn't mean as much as if you have a minute and 10 seconds. So a lot can make a difference with that. And so obviously it's a good thing, I think, that they're longer rounds. In Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they have 3-3-minute rounds, but that's advanced amateurs. And I've noticed as a commentator how much different the advanced amateurs are because of the bigger rule set and longer time frame. Makes a huge difference as the fight goes. Now let's get to this specific fight. You already mentioned you're fighting Timbo Slice. He's got a fun last name, Bonafide, Bonafide, something like that, but it's a great nickname, Timbo Slice. Why say yes to him? What's your prediction on the level of entertainment? And are you going to make a prediction as far as how you're going to win and those type things?
Sure. So, initially I wanted to fight someone else. And, this guy, as much as he talked, he didn't want to put pen to paper. But, when I was talking with the promotion, they were saying, hey, we can still find you another fight. It's like, okay. And, one of the things I meant to mention before is this is the day before my birthday. So it's like, I just, of course I want to fight. And, they gave me Timbo's name, which, I found out I was already friends with him on social media. You know how it is. Local fighter, local gym, you just not following each other. And he's an entertaining fighter. one thing I got to give him is the dude's got a chin, man. I'm pretty sure you were ringside for his fights.
Yeah,
And
that was.
yeah, he was sitting there smiling back at this boxer, picking him apart, and even when he lost his mouthpiece, kept taking it. And looks like he always got a fun, positive attitude. And one thing I do before a fight is I reach out to my opponent, thank him for taking the fight. I look forward to getting in there, and just give him a heads up that I don't do that corny shit at weigh-ins, getting in his face. He agreed we're on good terms, and since he's a Marine too, I told him I'd buy him a beer afterwards. But yeah, definitely looking forward to mixing it up with him. I will say that from what I can tell, he seems to be a freestyle fighter. Doesn't have some like solid base prior to MMA. And between his build and my strengths, I can predict what he wants to do about it.
Yeah.
I think he's going to want to keep his distance at the very most. Only let me get as close as the end of his jab, and I have every intention of making that a problem for him.
Yeah, I think that's the classic. I mean, that's no secret. That's no giving away a game plan. He's a tall, longer guy. You're a wrestling background, so even if you were the taller opponent as a wrestler background, you likely want to take take your shots and take it to the ground. But given your strong, thick, I've often found that back when Matt the Terra Serra won and knocked out a shocking upset against the greatest UFC fighter of all times, GSP. My own humble opinion, I have to get that in at least once a session or once an interview. But that was because 170 was the lowest in UFC. I don't know if you were remembering back then or watching back then, but they didn't have anything lower than that. And then at one point, then they went to 155, and then from there. So I think there is an advantage sometimes of being the powerhouse. Fire plug is what some might describe a short, thick, really strong, explosive fighter. I think given your height, weight, and strength, you do have advantages in that, given Timbo's range and the willingness to want to keep it on the feet and keep it a scrap. I think it's definitely going to be a fan favorite and a great entertaining fight. Are you gonna go and say a prediction that this is going to be takedown, ground and pound? That's kind of what you envision.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I've been looking forward to doing. One of the reasons why I wanted to have this fight in Ohio. And I've been wanting some time now, but I mean, fights get messy. I'm going in there planning on winning and doing it in a dominant fashion. But I mean, if I see an opening, I'm going to take it. I don't want my pride to get in the way, say, no, this needs to look one way. This is the type of fighter I am. If the finish is there, I need to take it. That's a responsible thing to do. That's a mature decision to make.
That is, and that's good. There's the cognitive prep to every sport, and fighting is probably even the most important, right? Because we've seen a lot of times you have to kind of teach your brain what you want to be looking for opportunities, looking for, this, all those type of things. And it's exciting because you mentioned doing more in jiu-jitsu. So you've been teaching your brain to look for those sub openings. And that's a good thing. And obviously ground and pound, being on the ground, you'll see those strike openings as well. So I can't wait to see it. I think it's great that you guys want to put on a good show. I mean, it is a fight, so you're looking to take out your opponent, but it's also kind of, I think, a very classy thing to have a conversation with your opponent to kind of say, hey, look, let's kind of come up with a mindset we're going to have coming in this. Sam Smiling Alvey, when he was in the UFC, used to bring like chocolates and flowers and gifts to his opponent to kind of, keep it light. Yeah, then smiling Sam. And he didn't really like, and I think that's great at that level. He didn't really like the idea that everybody has to be, telling you that they're going to kill you and things like that. He wanted to keep it more friendly because it is a fight, but it's not life and death. It's a sport. So it's a real honor to have you back on. I'm hoping to have Timbo on to talk to him as well, because you guys are both great interviewees, great entertaining guys. So can't wait to see you. Everybody needs to be getting their pay-per-view. If you're from the California area, or if you're from Pittsburgh and not making the drive out, that's 247fighting.com. Make sure you give Cliff Richards credit when you're signing out if you're buying the pay-per-view. Of course, if you're buying tickets and making the drive into Cincinnati, make sure you give Cliff Richards credit as well. It's going to make a big difference. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Hey, thanks for everything, Luke. And I just have a minute to plug in my coaching sponsors real quick. Big thanks to everyone at Victory MMA, Coach AP, Coach Nate, Coach Tick. And I didn't forget about my buddies down at Intensity MMA, Coach Henry. Thank you for everything. And of course, my sponsors, the Good Dog Young Duck Store, XL Link, Paints, the Taco Guy, Shorty Spot, Goody Donuts. You're a big part of what's got me this far. Thank you very much, all of you. And thank you, Luke, for having me on again.
An absolute honor. I'm glad you took that opportunity. I always want to do a special thanks to all sponsors, particularly of amateur up-and-coming fighters that I think a lot of times people don't understand, because when you see at the big level, but at regional MMA, any type of sponsor makes a huge difference. So I'm grateful for those sponsors in your behalf, and I'm glad you were able to give them support and credit. And of course, not only your current gym, but any trainer, any gym in your past, the Marine combatives, it goes on and on. Wrestling in high school all brings you to where you are now. Really a great time having you on the show. Can't wait to see you. The plan is for me to be interviewing the winners, like I tend to like to do for 247, the post-fight interview. So hopefully I'm interviewing you. We'll see come September 9th, the day before your 34th birthday. What a way to kick off your birthday. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for everything, Luke. Take care, man.
Take care. All right, bud. Bye-bye.